A checkout video is my own personal recommendation of a video game where I mostly present what the game has to offer, instead of focusing on explaining my own opinion of the game, which is why this shouldn't be considered as a review, but instead a carefree suggestion made in an intriguing fashion in the hopes for you, the viewer, to find something new to enjoy. This video has been classified as a potential danger to people who are sensitive to flashing images. So, here's a warning that'll prevent you from suing me if something ever happens to you. Start the video.
Dark Souls is a game where you play as an undead who is afflicted with a curse that prevents you from dying, while gradually losing your own sanity as time goes by. The colossal yet cruel and intertwined fantasy world named Lordran is filled with demons, monsters, and hollowed undead who will try their very best to end your miserable life. This really gives off a sensation that makes you feel like you're a little fly who got tangled up in a spider's web. You might be fragile, but not defenseless. And besides, you're practically immortal. But that doesn't mean that you won't feel loss upon death, because we all got something to live for, am I right? And if you think that sounds challenging, then let me mention that you will occasionally run into some of the most creative, yet intimidating, epic bosses that'll truly test your abilities and give you some of the most satisfying victories that'll make you feel like you're a complete badass. That is, if you're even able to defeat them, or even manage to push through the difficult enemies that are strategically placed combined with different kinds of dangerous environments that is guaranteed to make your journey through this game a living hell, causing you to die constantly. Unacceptable! But fret not, because dying is everything in this game. It's how you learn, it's how you adapt, and it's also how your soul gets shattered into millions of teeny tiny pieces. I wish I could feel things again. Anyway, this game is hard, unforgiving, and sometimes just plain sadistic. And it's guaranteed to destroy you unless you take your time to learn how the game works and develop your own playstyle by scavenging whatever equipment you can find in this vast, intertwined world. And boy, is there a lot of things to choose from. Which means unlimited power! Dark Souls contains a huge arsenal of weapons, armor, and magic at your disposal. Everything from crappy rags, to leather, to steel, and to complete badassness. The same goes for weapons. You have your daggers, swords, katanas, rapiers, greatswords, hammers, and spears, combined with some impractical yet cool looking fantasy weapons. And my personal favorite, Getsuga Tensho! But don't get your hopes up if you're thinking about hiding behind all of that presumably impenetrate armor, because the thing about the equipment in Dark Souls is that nothing is perfect, since everything has their own strengths and weaknesses, you filthy casual. For example, big badass armor equals less AoEs from sharp pointy hurties, but that also leaves you more vulnerable for people casting either glowing balls, flamey balls, or even big black balls who will hunt you down and take your souls. Oh, I'm sorry, was that racist? Let me rephrase that. I meant big urban friendly balls that will gently fly towards you and unwillingly end your life. And also take your souls.
Because fuck racial intolerance, that's why.
The weapons also share the same kind of mechanic. Daggers are fleet, agile, and also happens to be the perfect example of a very small penis. It doesn't do much damage while suffering from the lack of reach, but it's ready to deal massive amounts of critical damage whenever an opportunity arrives. That is, if one ever arrives. You're underestimating the power of my virginity. Although, if you fancy slow and heavy great penis, sorry, I meant great swords, then you'll be able to inflict extreme amounts of physical damage and also have an easier time breaking through other enemies' guards. But they're also heavy and drain your stamina a lot faster. So remember, size isn't all that matters, it's how you use it. Unless you're a giant dad build, which is basically a tank whose line is a feather who's capable of swinging around a 50-pound two-handed greatsword.
You know what, mate? Better get good. The legend is here, faggot.
Oh, and did I mention that there is magic in this game? Because there is. Sorceries, pyromancies, miracles, and hexes. But you won't be able to rely on them since they have a very limited amount of uses. And the only way to restore them is by resting at one of the many bonfires that are strategically placed around the world. Bonfires act like your checkpoints. It's where you can level up, change spells, and restore your Estus flask. But by doing this, you also respawn all the enemies in the area, except bosses and mini-bosses that you'll mostly meet in the beginning of the game, such as the Black Knights.
Right in the balls!
The Bereniki Knights, also known as Men of Steel. A dragon! Apply Estus at burnt area. This armored boar that'll hunt down that booty of yours for days. And finally, John Cena! So, what makes Dark Souls so hard? Like my penis? Well, to begin with, it's your lack of knowledge about the game, which the developers of Dark Souls uses against you. Since the only hand-holding, let alone tutorial that you'll ever get in this game is this!
Welcome to Dark Souls. I'll be your tutorial.
And if you ever manage to get past that, you kinda know how to play, but just barely to get by.
Since you need a better strategy than just boldly exchanging blows with your foes, you actually have to think before you act while developing the most suited playstyle. Then again, you won't be able to keep the cake and eat it at the same time. Meaning that you can only focus on certain types of playstyles if you choose to level up the stats needed to use them efficiently. I mean, you can't exactly be a magic poopin' ninja who weighs over 500 pounds. And let's not forget about the seemingly unpredictable enemies who will do a shit ton of damage on your teeny tiny health bar, where you can only do so little to prevent your inevitable demise with your good-for-nothing stamina bar. Because every action you perform, like swinging your sword, sprinting, kicking, parrying, dodging, and blocking enemy attacks, drains your stamina. And when your stamina bar is tapped, you're leaving yourself open for incoming attacks. Which means death!
But what makes death so horrible in this game? Well, you see, every time you kill an enemy, you get an amount of souls, which is the currency needed to level up, upgrade your weapons, armor, and buying items from merchants. It's basically everything you live for. And if you die, you lose all of your souls. But you get a second chance of retrieving your souls if you walk back to the very spot you died on. Which happened to be underground, filled with hot lava and big angry goats wielding great axes. Holy shit! And if you happen to die a second time, your souls will disappear. Forever! And lastly, there's a unique multiplayer mode in which you can access in the game by restoring your character's humanity, by using humanity. This mode will allow you to summon other players or NPCs as phantoms to your world to either help you get through a difficult area or help defeat a boss. But by doing this, you also leave yourself exposed to getting invaded by dark spirits, which is either NPCs or other players who has entered your world with the purpose of killing you and claiming your humanity, making your life a hellier hell than it was before. Yeah!
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen.
explore the tainted yet beautiful world of Lordran and uncover its hidden story by reading the item descriptions and actually paying attention during your conversations with the NPCs. Try to read between the lines and see if you're able to find out the truth that could very well determine the fate of this world.
But what's interesting about this game is the amount of lore on many of the bosses and characters. Not all of them are as blind as you might think. A lot of them actually share different goals that could easily be overlooked unless you really pay attention to what they say, what they do, and why they did it. Their goals could also be ruined by a particular undead that could very well lead to their downfall.
What you may see as a cruel, merciless boss who's giving you a hard time may actually have a reason to stop you. Maybe it is there to protect someone important to them, or even yourself. It's because of details like these that makes the world richer and more fulfilling than before. But where Dark Souls really shines is the boss battles that'll truly put your skills to the test and teach you how really crap you are at this game. Just when you thought you got the hang of it, they crush your very existence together with your hopes, dreams, and sanity. Because they will do that a lot, trust me.
But if you do manage to best your opponent, you'll get an amazing sense of accomplishment that you won't be able to find anywhere else, followed up by a shred of emptiness. Knowing that the fun is over and that you won't ever be able to experience the same adrenaline-filled battle again.
Which is also why I envy players who hasn't played this game yet, because Dark Souls is one of those games that I would like to wipe out my entire memory of, just to re-experience the bittersweet journey all over again. Now, if this is the kind of thing that tickles your fancy, then let me first mention a couple of downsides about the game that make you want to reconsider your purchase.
The PC port of this game is terrible, but can be fixed by using a mod named DS-Fix at your own risk, however, since it may cause other problems involving the visuals and gameplay. But I would still recommend that you use a controller if you have one.
And another thing, you'll get lost. A lot.
In this huge intertwined world, knowing hardly anything about where you're supposed to go and how to get there. Even though it breaks your immersion and messes up the pacing, I recommend you that you just keep pushing through. It'll be worth it.
And then there's the multiplayer. The multiplayer. Well, the multiplayer is quite dead. So don't get your hopes up for some jolly cooperation. Even if you and your friends did buy the same game and want to join forces, then I'm sorry to inform you that it's not going to happen, because the game developers of this game didn't want the players to play with their friends, as it would make the game easier and ruin the mood of the game. I'm not saying that it's impossible, just that it will take a very long time for you to connect to each other. Trust me, I tried. You're better off quitting before you even started. That aside, if you're interested into PvP, also known as player versus player, then you're in luck, because PvP is still very much active. But do keep in mind that there are still plenty of hackers out there that just want to troll you and make your day a hellier hell than it was before that. And then there's the final issue, perhaps the most horrifying part of this game, that everybody must be aware of. The dark secret of the main character. Did you know that behind all of that shining armor, your character is actually wearing a pair of dirty thongs? Fangs! I guess you could say that that was quite revealing. Remember kids to always change your underwear every single day. Or this could be you. And if you're already wearing fangs, then they will become fangier. Anyway, to summarize all of this, I'll simply ask you this. Do you like challenges? Good. Do you like to die? No? Good. Then you'll fit right into this game. Because you'll do that over and over. Dark Souls. Are you prepared to die?
Wow. I really sounded like an edgy teenager back there. And in case you haven't left yet due to an excruciating amount of cringe that lies beneath the very surface of this video, then I'd like to thank you for watching. Be sure to check out Superbutterbuns' beginner's guide for Dark Souls. Even if you aren't a newbie, just watch it for the funsies, cause that gal's hilarious. VaatiVidja is also an amazing channel who presents the deep lore with interesting narrations with an immersion so beautifully crafted that it simply cannot go overlooked. And finally, I would also like to thank Afro Ninja and Emarrel for not suing me yet for using their content without their approval. Yeah! Despite me asking and waiting for about a week now and counting. So that's it for me, then I'll wish a good day to you. Yeah. Bye bye.
So be sure to search every inch of the world top to bottom so you can find good items and weapons. And then stop once you run into an over-leveled enemy and oh look, I died again! What the? Oh god, no, this is all wrong.
Ria is a highborn girl who becomes undead. She no longer has a place in her homeland and is cast away to be forgotten. She does her best but fails to find the secret of kindling. Betrayed by a man who hates her for her high birth. Tricked by Patches, lusted after by Lautrec, and responsible for the death of her friends, she is rescued by you, the only one in Lordrun who gives her mercy.